My girlfriend gave me an ultimatum about our vacation, so I took it. Let me give you some background so you understand the dynamic we had. Vanessa works in marketing for a luxury brand, and she's always been very particular about appearances and experiences. When we first started dating, I actually found it attractive. She had this confidence about what she wanted, this ability to spot quality that I thought was sophisticated. She'd introduce me to restaurants I'd never heard of, point out details in hotels or experiences that I would have missed. But over time, what started as helpful suggestions became more like requirements. She'd get visibly disappointed if I picked a restaurant that didn't meet her criteria, or if I suggested an activity she considered basic. I started second-guessing every choice I made, always wondering if it would be good enough for her standards. So we'd been planning this trip to Cabo for months. I'm talking about a proper vacation. I spent weeks researching the perfect resort, reading reviews, comparing amenities. I finally settled on this beautiful 5-star place that had everything. I booked us their ocean view suite, which came with a massive balcony, separate living area, marble bathroom with a soaking tub, the works. Cost me about $4,500 for the week, which isn't pocket change for me even though I do all right financially working in tech. The weeks leading up to the trip, she seemed excited. She'd show me outfits she was planning to pack, talk about which restaurants at the resort we should try first, send me articles about things to do in Cabo. I thought we were on the same page about how amazing this was going to be. The morning of our flight, we were in the Uber heading to the airport. I was excited. She seemed excited. Everything was good. Then she asked to see the confirmation email on my phone to check our flight details. No problem, right? I handed it over. That's when everything went sideways. She was scrolling through the resort confirmation and suddenly her whole mood changed. Jeremy, what room category is this? I told her it was the Ocean View Suite, really nice place, showed her the photos I'd screenshotted when booking. But apparently that wasn't good enough. She was looking up the resort website and found out there was an even more expensive category, some presidential suite that was like $800 more per night. You didn't book the best room, she said, and I could hear the disappointment in her voice turning into something else. I explained that the room I booked was already amazing, had everything we needed, but she was not having it. She started going on about how if I really cared about making this special for us, I would have gotten the absolute best room available. Then at one point she actually turned to me and said, "Either you call the resort and upgrade the suite or I'm not going." I thought she was joking at first, but the look on her face, she was dead serious. A straight-up ultimatum, and that's when something clicked in my brain. This wasn't the first time she'd done this. There was the time she demanded I return a birthday gift because it wasn't from the right jewelry store. Then there was the time she refused to go to dinner with my college friends because the restaurant wasn't fancy enough for her standards. Every single time I'd caved. I'd apologize, fix whatever she was upset about, do whatever it took to keep the peace. But sitting in that car with her literally threatening to ruin our entire vacation over a room upgrade, something just broke. "You know what?" I said. "You're absolutely right," she smiled, thinking she'd won again. But then I pulled out my phone. "If you don't want to go with the room I booked, you shouldn't have to." And right there, with her watching, I called the airline and canceled her ticket. Then I called the resort and canceled her portion of the booking. The look on her face was something I'll never forget, pure shock, like she couldn't believe someone had actually called her bluff. "What the hell are you doing?" she was practically screaming. "You said you weren't going. I'm making sure you don't have to compromise your standards." She immediately started backtracking. "I didn't mean it like that, you know I want to go. I was just trying to make our trip special." But I was done. I told the Uber driver to make a stop so she could get out and catch a ride home. Then I went to the airport and took my vacation. Alone. Reddit, I know this sounds harsh, but I've never felt more clear-headed about a decision in my life. I'm just wondering if I'm the asshole here for taking her ultimatum literally like that. Edit, holy crap, this blew up. Thanks for all the support, guys. Currently on my flight back home, and reading these comments is honestly making me realize how messed up this pattern was. To answer some questions, yes, she's been blowing up my phone the entire week. No, I haven't answered. And yes, I had an amazing time. More details coming in an update post. Update 1. Posted 3 days later. Hey Reddit. Op here with the vacation ultimatum story. So let me tell you about the vacation itself, because honestly it was the best solo trip I've ever taken. After I dropped Vanessa off and went to the airport alone, I'll admit the first few hours were weird. I kept expecting to feel guilty or regret my decision, but it never came. Instead, I felt this strange sense of relief. The resort was absolutely gorgeous. The room I'd booked, the one that apparently wasn't good enough, had this massive balcony overlooking the ocean, a bathroom bigger than some apartments I've lived in, and a view that made me forget about everything back home. I spent the first evening just sitting on that balcony with a beer, watching the sunset paint the sky in colors I don't think I'd ever really noticed before, and realized I couldn't remember the last time I'd felt that peaceful. The next morning, I woke up naturally around 7 a.m., no alarm, no anxiety about what mood Vanessa might be in, no mental checklist of things I needed to do to keep her happy. Just peace. I ordered room service, something Vanessa always said was wasteful when you could just go to the restaurant. Sat on my balcony eating fresh fruit and amazing coffee, and actually enjoyed it instead of rushing through breakfast. The second day, I'm at the resort's beachside bar around sunset, just watching the water and nursing a margarita. This woman at the next table is doing the same thing, solo, reading a book, looking completely content. I noticed because she was laughing at something in her book, this genuine, carefree laugh that I realized I hadn't heard from Vanessa in. I couldn't even remember how long. It always felt like a performance with her somehow. We ended up striking up a conversation when she asked me to watch her stuff while she went to get another drink. Her name was Mia. She's 29, from Denver, and she's a nurse taking her first real vacation she'd always wanted to in 2 years. And guys, talking to her was so easy. We discussed travel, our jobs, books, random observations about the resort. No judgment, no criticism, no walking on eggshells worried about saying the wrong thing. When I mentioned I was originally supposed to be here with my girlfriend but things didn't work out, she didn't pry or judge. She just said, "Well, solo travel can be pretty amazing too," and changed the subject. We ended up hanging out for most of the week, and it was honestly the most refreshing human interaction I'd had in months. Nothing romantic, just genuine friendship and shared experiences. She never once criticized my choices or demanded I change plans to accommodate some impossible standard. When I suggested activities, she was either into it or politely suggested alternatives. Like actual alternatives, not ultimatums. Normal human interaction that I'd apparently forgotten was possible. It made me realize how exhausting my relationship with Vanessa had become. I'd been so focused on managing her moods and avoiding her ultimatums that I'd forgotten what it felt like to just enjoy someone's company. Meanwhile, my phone was lighting up constantly the entire week. Vanessa was cycling through every emotion and manipulation tactic you can imagine, and watching the pattern from a distance was honestly eye-opening. First it was anger, lots of texts about how I'm childish and cruel for abandoning her. Messages like, "I can't believe you would do something so immature, and this is not how adults handle disagreements." She sent me screenshots of flights to Cabo that she was considering booking, but wanted me to apologize first before she'd come. Then came the guilt trips about how she was heartbroken and couldn't believe I'd choose a vacation over our relationship. Long voice messages where she was crying about how she thought we were building something real together and how she never expected me to be so vindictive. She kept saying things like, "I hope you're happy," in this tone that was clearly meant to make me feel terrible. By day 3, she was trying a different approach. Suddenly it was all about how she overreacted and just wanted us to have the perfect trip together. She sent me photos of the presidential suite from the resort website with messages like, maybe next time we can afford this together. And I was just excited about our first big trip. She was trying to rewrite history, making it seem like we were on the same team, and she'd never made unreasonable demands. Day 4 brought the mutual friend recruitment. She had her friend Lisa call me to check in and see how I was doing. Lisa tried to play mediator, saying things like, you know how Vanessa gets when she's stressed about wanting things to be perfect, and she really loves you, she just has a hard time expressing it sometimes. I was polite but firm. This was between Vanessa and me. Day 5 was when she tried calling my mom. My mom. For real. Apparently she was worried about me because I wasn't responding to her messages and she thought something might have happened. She told my mom she was concerned about my mental state because I was acting erratically. My mom, bless her, saw right through it. She just told Vanessa she was sure I was fine and could handle myself, then called me later to make sure I actually was okay and to tell me what happened. The final few days, the messages got desperate. Long paragraphs about how she realized she'd been demanding and wanted to work on it. How she loved me and couldn't imagine losing me over something so stupid. Promises to go to counseling, to change, to be better. But you know what? Sitting on that beach, finally relaxed for the first time in months, I realized that even if she could change, and that's a big if, I wasn't sure I wanted to anymore. When Mia and I were saying goodbye at the airport, she said something that stuck with me. You seem so much lighter than when I first met you, like you've been carrying something heavy and finally put it down. She was right. I had been carrying something heavy, the weight of a relationship where I was always wrong, always needing to do more, be more, give more. I'm flying back home tomorrow. Vanessa is still texting daily, still convinced we can work this out. But I think I already know what needs to happen. Update 2. Posted 1 week later. Alright Reddit, here's the update about that conversation with Vanessa I'd been dreading. So I got back from Cabo Sunday night. Vanessa had been texting me that she wanted to come over and talk through everything the moment I landed. I was exhausted after the flight and honestly couldn't bring myself to deal with whatever she was planning. So I told her we could meet for coffee Monday evening, neutral location, public place, time limit. Monday came around and she showed up to the coffee shop looking different. Hair done, makeup perfect, wearing this dress I'd complimented her on months ago. Clearly she'd put thought into her appearance. She was armed with what seemed like a rehearsed speech. I know I've been difficult lately, she started, and I want you to know I'm ready to work on that. I've been thinking about us all week, and I realize how lucky I am to have someone who cares about me enough to plan amazing trips and put up with my perfectionist tendencies. Perfectionist tendencies. So that's what we're calling giving ultimatums until your partner caves now. She went on for probably 10 minutes about how she wanted to go to couples counseling, how she'd been stressed from work, and taking it out on me, how she never meant for her suggestions to come across as demands. She even offered to pay me back for her portion of the trip I'd canceled. The whole time she was talking, I was thinking about that conversation with Mia at the airport, about how light I'd felt that whole week. When Vanessa finally stopped talking, she looked at me expectantly, like she was waiting for me to feel guilty about how hard she was trying, to apologize for overreacting, and to agree we could fix this together. Instead, I said, Vanessa, do you remember the ultimatum you gave me in the car? She jumped in with an excuse almost instantly. I wasn't thinking clearly, I was just frustrated about wanting our trip to be perfect. Do you remember the ultimatum about the restaurant with my college friends then? Or the jewelry store? She got quiet then. Because I remember all of them, and what I realized this week is that you don't give ultimatums when you're frustrated. You give them because they work, because I always cave and give you what you want to avoid the conflict. She started to protest, but I held up my hand. I'm not angry anymore, Vanessa. I'm actually grateful this happened because it showed me what our relationship really was. It wasn't a partnership. It was me managing your emotions and trying to meet standards that kept changing every time I thought I'd figured them out. That's when her demeanor started to shift. The sweet, apologetic girlfriend act was slipping. So what, you're breaking up with me over one fight, over a hotel room? I'm ending this because I spent a week remembering what it feels like to have someone enjoy my company without constantly finding fault with my choices. I remembered what it's like to make a decision without worrying about whether it's going to trigger the next ultimatum. She tried a few more approaches after that. First came the tears. Her voice was shaking when she said, "Jeremy, please, I know I messed up, but we can fix this. I love you so much I can't lose you over something so stupid." When that didn't work, the anger returned. "Fine, so you're just going to throw away 2 years just like that? After everything I've done for you, all the ways I've helped you improve yourself." I stayed quiet, which seemed to frustrate her more. "And the money, Jeremy. Do you realize how much money you wasted on that trip? $4,000. That's completely financially irresponsible and immature." I couldn't help but smile at that one. "It wasn't wasted, Vanessa. I had a great time." Her eyes flashed. "Oh, really? Having a great time living it up while your girlfriend was sitting at home heartbroken? I'm sure you loved having that whole resort to yourself, probably flirting with every woman there." That's when I stood up to leave. The conversation was heading nowhere. But as I reached for my wallet to pay for coffee, she said something that confirmed everything I'd been thinking. "You'll regret this, you know. You know how hard it is to find someone who actually cares about having nice things and experiences. Most women won't push you to be better like I do. They'll just let you settle for mediocre." I looked at her for a moment, seeing her clearly for maybe the first time. In her mind, the ultimatums, the constant criticism, the impossible standards, she genuinely believed she was helping me be better. She couldn't see that what she was actually doing was training me to see myself through her eyes, where nothing I did was ever quite enough. "If you really want to change and work on yourself, that's great," I said, leaving money on the table. "But do it for you, not for me. We're done." And I walked out. That night, my sister Emma called me. She's 2 years older than me and has always been good at reading people. Mom had filled her in on Vanessa's phone call and the whole situation, so she called to check in. When I told her everything that happened, there was this long pause, and then she said, "Jeremy, I'm so proud of you." "For what?" "For finally standing up for yourself. Do you know how many times I wanted to shake you these past 2 years? Vanessa has been slowly isolating you and making you doubt yourself, and we all saw it happening, but you seemed so convinced she was helping you grow or whatever. It's been a few days now, and Vanessa has texted a couple more times, but they're different now. Less desperate, more cold. Something about how I led her on and wasted her time if I was never serious about our future. How she deserves better than someone who abandons people, and how I showed my true character. The irony wasn't lost on me, though. She was supposedly so over me and above this whole situation, yet she was still the one reaching out every few days to tell me how much she didn't need me. If you're truly done with someone, you don't keep texting them to let them know how done you are. Which honestly just confirms I made the right choice. I don't know what's next for me relationship-wise, but I know what I won't accept anymore. I won't be with someone who treats love like a negotiation where they hold all the cards. And I definitely won't let anyone use ultimatums to control my decisions ever again. Final update. Posted 6 months later. Hey everyone. I know it's been a while, but I wanted to give you all a final update since so many people have been asking how things turned out. First off, I'm doing incredible. Like, genuinely the happiest I've been in years. The relief I felt that first week has only gotten stronger with time. A few updates on how things have played out. Vanessa did go quiet for a while before she started trying the accidental text approach about a month after our coffee shop conversation. You know, the "oops, wrong number, how are you doing" thing. I didn't respond, obviously. Then she tried having a mutual friend reach out to see if I was open to talking. I politely told the friend I was moving forward and hoped she was doing the same. Vanessa eventually gave up after a week or so. The last I heard, she's finally moved on and started dating someone new. Good for her, honestly. I hope she finds whatever it is she's looking for, or better yet, figures out that happiness comes from within, not from controlling other people's choices. As for me, remember Mia, the woman I met in Cabo? Well, we'd kept in touch as friends. A few months after the trip, she mentioned she was considering a job offer in my city, and I offered to show her around different neighborhoods if she came to visit. Her visit happened about 4 months after Cabo. She was genuinely exploring the job opportunity, and I was happy to play tour guide. We spent the weekend checking out different areas, trying local restaurants, just catching up as friends. But by the end of that weekend, I realized this friendship had become something more, at least for me. I was terrified of messing it up, especially since I was still figuring things out after got out of a serious relationship and didn't want to lose a good friend. Turns out she was feeling the same way. On her last night here, we were having dinner at this little Italian place near my apartment. Nothing fancy, just good food and easy conversation, and she said, "I have to ask you something, and if I'm reading this wrong, just pretend I never said it. But have you thought about us as more than friends?" Mia ended up taking the job offer and moving to my city. We've been dating for 3 months now, and guys, this is what a healthy relationship feels like. When Mia disagrees with something I've suggested, she just says so and suggests an alternative. When I do something that bothers her, she brings it up directly instead of letting it build into resentment or using it as ammunition later. It sounds so simple, but after 2 years with Vanessa, the absence of drama feels like a miracle. Actually, I ran into Vanessa about a month ago at a coffee shop downtown. I was there with Mia and Vanessa was alone. When she saw me, I braced myself for drama, but instead she just gave a small wave. After a moment, she did approach our table. "Hi, Jeremy," she said quietly. "I don't want to interrupt, I wanted to say something if that's okay." Mia squeezed my hand under the table and said she'd give us a minute, but Vanessa shook her head. "No, please stay. This concerns you too, in a way." She looked at me directly. "I wanted to apologize, really apologize. My boyfriend now, he's helped me see how awful I was to you." I was honestly stunned. This wasn't the Vanessa I knew. There was no performance, no underlying agenda I could detect. "He doesn't put up with the ultimatum thing," she continued, looking genuinely embarrassed. "The first time I tried it with him, he just calmly said, 'Okay,' and left. Then he came back the next day and told me that if I wanted to be with him, I needed to learn how to communicate like an adult instead of making threats." She paused, looking down at her hands. "It made me realize how toxic I'd been with you. I spent so long thinking I was helping you become better, but I was really just trying to control everything because I was terrified of not being good enough myself. I'm really sorry for everything." I didn't know what to say. Part of me felt vindicated, but mostly I just felt sad for the time we'd both lost. "I'm glad you're working on yourself," I said finally, "and I appreciate the apology. That takes courage." She nodded and actually looked relieved. "I won't bother you again. I just needed you to know that I know now. Take care, Jeremy." And she walked away. Mia looked at me with raised eyebrows. Well, that was unexpected. It was. But it also confirmed something I'd been thinking. People can change, but that doesn't mean you have to stick around for their growth journey, especially when they're hurting you in the process. I'm genuinely happy that Vanessa is working on herself, but I have no regrets about not being there for that transformation. I chose happiness and I've never looked back. That's it from me, Reddit. Thanks for being there when I needed perspective. You guys are the best. My ex called me a failure and left me for a successful guy, then saw me at her new boyfriend's company event. So this happened about 3 months ago, but I'm finally ready to talk about it. I just went through what I think was the most brutal breakup of my life, and I honestly don't know if I handled it right. I was dating Maya for about 2 years. Things seemed great. We lived together, talked about the future, the whole 9 yards. She knew I worked in project development for a tech consulting firm, and I guess she had her own ideas about what that meant for my success level. Here's the thing about me. I've never been flashy with money. I drive a decent but not expensive car. I shop at Target. I live in a nice but modest apartment. My dad always taught me not to show off, and honestly, I just don't see the point in expensive brands when the quality isn't better. That said, I'm not cheap with the people I care about. I took Maya on plenty of nice vacations, bought her thoughtful gifts, and we regularly went to good restaurants. I just preferred spending money on experiences and things that mattered rather than status symbols. Maya, on the other hand, seemed increasingly focused on appearances. She'd hint about designer bags her friends had, comment on other couples' expensive date spots, and lately had been pushing for us to upgrade our lifestyle in ways that felt more about showing off than enjoying ourselves. The fight that ended everything started when Maya announced she'd made reservations at this new ultra-exclusive steakhouse downtown, the kind of place where you need connections just to get a table. When I asked about the occasion, she said she wanted to post pictures there because everyone was talking about it. I told her that sounded great, but maybe we could try the place that had just gotten amazing reviews in the food magazine instead, somewhere we could actually focus on each other rather than performing for social media. That's when she completely lost it. "You know what, Daniel? I'm tired of this. I'm tired of you always suggesting the reasonable option when I want something nice. Look around. All my friends are dating guys who actually want to be seen at the right places. Richard doesn't question every expensive restaurant. Richard understands that sometimes it's about more than just the food." Wait, who the hell is Richard? That's when I found out she'd been talking to this guy from her gym for months. Apparently he's some hotshot business development manager at a big firm downtown, drives a BMW, posts pictures from exclusive events. But here's the part that really cut deep. She looked me straight in the eye and said, "You're just ordinary, Daniel. Richard can give me a life you never could." Then she started packing her stuff. I just stood there watching her pack. Part of me wanted to argue, to explain things, but honestly, if that's how she really saw me after 2 years together, what was the point? I helped her carry her boxes to her car and said goodbye. She seemed almost surprised that I didn't fight harder, but I was too hurt and honestly too proud. The thing is, Reddit, there's something Maya never understood about how I approach money. When I told her I was in project development, I wasn't lying, but I wasn't giving her the full picture either. My company just landed the biggest contract in our history, a multi-million-dollar digital transformation project. I'm the lead on it, the client, the same company where her precious Richard works. I never told Maya about the big contract because it was still being finalized when we were together, and I don't like counting chickens before they hatch. Plus, I've seen what happens when people fall in love with your success instead of you. I wanted her to love me for who I am, not what's in my bank account. I thought taking her on nice trips to places we both genuinely wanted to go, buying her things she mentioned wanting, and planning thoughtful surprises meant more than flashy displays of wealth. Apparently I was wrong. So now I'm sitting here 3 months later, and guess what showed up in my email yesterday? An invitation to the client company's annual partnership gala. They want me there as their strategic partner representative. The funny thing is, Maya has no idea. She thinks she upgraded to some big shot, but from what I can see on LinkedIn, Richard is middle management in their sales department. Nice enough job, don't get me wrong, but he's probably never even been in the same room as the executives I work with. I know I should probably just let this go and move on. Ashley from my office has been asking me out for months, and she's honestly amazing, smart, funny, and she already knows about my work situation and couldn't care less about fancy restaurants. When I mentioned that Maya used to get frustrated with my spending choices, Ashley laughed and said, "You mean the way you actually think about whether something is worth it instead of just buying things to impress people? That's called being an adult." We've been friends for 3 years, and she appreciates that I'd rather spend money on a weekend camping trip than a designer handbag. But part of me is curious about this gala. Should I go? Last time I heard, Maya was still dating this Richard guy, so she'll probably be there as his plus one. Is it petty to want to see the look on Maya's face when she realizes what she walked away from? I'm not trying to get revenge or anything, but I'd be lying if I said I wasn't curious. What do you think, Reddit? Edit. Wow, this blew up. Thanks for all the support, everyone. A few people are asking about my company and the contract. Basically, my firm helps big companies upgrade all their computer systems and software to modern versions. Think of it like renovating a house, but for technology. The contract I mentioned is a 3-year deal worth about $8 million where I'm in charge of the whole project. Some of you are saying I should have told Maya about my success. Here's the thing. I've seen too many relationships where people fall in love with the lifestyle, not the person. My parents have been married 35 years, and my dad always said the best thing he did was make sure my mom loved him when he was broke. I guess I wanted that same kind of security. Update 1. 2 weeks later. Hey Reddit, Daniel here with an update that I honestly couldn't have scripted if I tried. So eventually, I came to terms with the fact that I'm really kind of petty and decided to go to the gala. Ashley agreed to be my date, which was perfect because she'd been wanting to meet some of the executives I work with anyway. She looked absolutely stunning, and more importantly, she was genuinely excited about the event. No complaints about the venue, no comments about whether my suit was expensive enough, just pure enthusiasm about the whole experience. The event was at this gorgeous hotel downtown, and our company had a VIP table right up front. Ashley and I were having a great time, and I was honestly starting to forget all about the Maya situation. Then the presentation started. Our CEO got up to talk about the partnership, and about 10 minutes in, he called me up on stage. I'd like to introduce Daniel Nelson, the brilliant mind behind our breakthrough implementation strategy and lead project manager for this transformative partnership. As I was walking up to the podium, I scanned the audience out of habit. That's when I saw her. Maya was sitting at a table about halfway back, wearing this burgundy dress I remember her saving up for months to buy. Our eyes met for a moment, and she got this frozen smile on her face like she was trying real hard to process what was happening. Richard was next to her, and I could see him leaning over to whisper something, probably explaining who I am. The speech went well. I talked about the project timeline, the expected outcomes, all the usual stuff, but I could feel Maya's eyes on me the entire time. When I mentioned that this contract represented the largest digital transformation in the client company's history, I saw her grip tighten on her wine glass. During the Q&A, when one of the executives mentioned that our project would be setting the industry standard for the next decade, I watched Maya's face crumble a little more. By the time I mentioned the multi-million-dollar budget, she looked like she was going to be sick. After the speech, I was back at my table with Ashley when the client company's VP came over. Daniel, fantastic presentation. I can't tell you how excited we are about this collaboration. Richard from our sales team has been raving about your company. He gestured vaguely toward Maya's table. I believe you know some people over there. Ashley squeezed my hand under the table. She could tell something was up, but she didn't make a scene or ask questions. God, I love how she handles things. The rest of the evening was surreal. Executive after executive came by our table to chat about the project. Maya's table was close enough that she could hear every conversation, every mention of budget numbers and timeline milestones. Richard kept getting more and more quiet as the night went on. He probably realized who I was, beyond just being his company's partner. Around 10 p.m., Ashley excused herself to the bathroom, and that's when Maya made her move. She came over to my table, and honestly, she looked shaken. Daniel, I had no idea. Why didn't you tell me about all this? I looked at her for a long moment. Tell you what, Maya, that I was ordinary. Her face crumpled a little. That's not. I didn't mean. You meant exactly what you said. Sure, you didn't know about this contract, but you knew I had a good job and wasn't struggling. You'd gone on dates I paid for, enjoyed the things I bought with my money. I never let you go without, never made you feel like you were missing out on anything. And still, you looked at my life, the way I chose to live, the things I valued, and decided it wasn't enough for you. So you don't get to come here and question me about it now. She tried to say something else, but Ashley came back and the conversation ended. Ashley didn't ask what happened, but she stayed close to me for the rest of the evening. The best part of the whole night. As we were leaving, I overheard one of the senior partners telling Richard that they were so fortunate to be working with Daniel's team. Richard just nodded and looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. Ashley and I went out for late-night diner food after the event, and we talked until 3 a.m. Not about Maya or the drama, but about everything else, our work, our dreams, funny stories from college. She told me she'd had a crush on me for 2 years but never said anything because I was with Maya. "I always thought you were too good for her," she said. "Not because of your job or money, but because of how kind you are. The way you remember everyone's birthday at work, how you always offer to help with projects, how you never talk behind people's backs. That's the stuff that actually matters." But she never saw that. I think I'm falling for Ashley, and it has nothing to do with how she reacted tonight. It's because she's been seeing the real me for 3 years, and she chose to love that person. Edit, people are asking about Richard. I don't know if he knew Maya was taken when they first started talking. From what I can tell, he seems like an okay guy who just ended up caught in the middle of Maya's drama. I don't have any beef with him personally, at least not now, not with what I know. Update 2. 1 month later. Okay, Reddit, I promised I'd update you on the Maya situation, and boy do I have news. Ashley and I have been officially dating for 3 weeks now, and it's honestly the best relationship I've ever had. She knows everything about my work, my finances, my family, and she fell for me when she thought I was just a regular project manager. When I finally showed her my actual salary, she laughed and said she'd figured it was something like that based on the executives I work with. Her response was, "Cool, now you can afford to split the really good cheese at the grocery store." That's the kind of woman I want to marry. But this update is really about Maya because the situation got intense. 2 weeks after the gala, my phone started buzzing. Maya had somehow found my new number and was texting me constantly. At first it was casual, "Hey, hope you're doing well" kind of stuff. Then it escalated to long paragraphs about how she'd made a mistake and wanted to talk about everything. I ignored most of it, but she refused to take the hint. She started showing up at my office building during lunch hours, waiting in the lobby. Security actually had to ask her to leave twice. She sent me a dozen emails with subject lines like, "Please just give me 5 minutes, and I know I messed up." Finally, last Friday, she cornered me in the parking garage at work. I was walking to my car when she suddenly came out from behind a pillar. Not gonna lie, it startled the hell out of me. "Daniel, please, I need to explain." I told her there was nothing to explain. She made her feelings clear when she packed her bags. That's when she got angry. "You lied to me. You let me think you couldn't afford the lifestyle I wanted. If you were successful, why didn't you want to enjoy it? Why all the let's be practical conversations when you could have just said yes to everything?" This is where I apparently lost my patience. "Maya, I could afford anything you wanted. The difference is I wanted you to want things for the right reasons. When you asked for that designer bag, I wanted to know if you loved the craftsmanship or just the label. When you wanted to go to expensive restaurants, I wanted to know if you actually wanted to try the food or just post pictures. I spent plenty of money on you, and I was willing to, but just on things that actually mattered. But you made me feel like I was asking for too much." No, Maya. You made yourself feel that way because deep down you knew you were asking for things just to keep up with other people. I took you to Paris for your birthday. I bought you that vintage camera you'd been researching for months. I paid for the cooking classes you were excited about. But apparently none of that counted because it wasn't visible enough to make your friends jealous. She started crying at this point, saying she never cared about money, that she just wanted security, that Richard had seemed more stable. I told her that a man who built real wealth didn't need to flash it around, and a woman who truly loved you didn't need you to. Then she said something that really pissed me off. "Well, what about Ashley? Are you being honest with her? Ashley has known me for 3 years. She's seen me in my Target shirts at the office. She's eaten lunch with me from the cafeteria, and she fell for me anyway. She didn't need to see my tax returns to know my character." That's when Maya really lost it. She accused me of playing mind games, of testing her, of being manipulative. She said if I was really successful, I should have been proud enough to show it. I told her she was missing the point entirely. "I wasn't testing you, Maya. I was being myself. I don't buy expensive clothes because I don't care about expensive clothes. I don't drive a flashy car because I think it's not necessary. I live modestly because that's who I am. The problem isn't that I hid my success. The problem is that you fell in love with an idea of what you wanted me to be instead of who I actually was. She stormed off after that, but not before telling me I'd regret losing her. Joke's on her. I already lost her a long time ago, and I don't think I regretted it that much. Ashley was waiting for me when I got home. I'd texted her about the parking garage thing. She didn't ask for details about the conversation, just hugged me and said, "Are you okay?" When I told her about Maya's accusation that I was being dishonest, Ashley laughed. "Daniel, I've watched you for 3 years. I've seen you turn down the expensive office chairs because you thought they were wasteful, but I've also seen you secretly pay for the intern's lunch when she was struggling financially. I've watched you research the perfect gift for your sister's graduation for weeks, and I've seen you drive 2 hours out of your way to find that specific book your mom mentioned wanting. You're not cheap, you're thoughtful. You spend money on things that actually matter to people you care about. That's not dishonesty, that's having values." We ordered pizza that night and watched terrible movies, and I realized that this is what I want. Not someone who needs me to prove my worth with expensive gestures, but someone who sees my worth in how I treat the pizza delivery guy and whether I remember to ask about her day. Edit, a lot of you are asking what happened with Richard. From what I can piece together, he's been pretty distant since the gala. Maya mentioned in one of her texts that he's been acting weird and asking a lot of questions about our relationship. I think he figured out that he's dating someone who left her previous boyfriend for money and status. Smart guy. Oh, and security at my office is aware of the situation now, just in case Maya escalates things. Hopefully it won't come to that, but better safe than sorry. Final update. 6 weeks later. Hey Reddit, I think this is probably my last update on this whole situation, but I wanted to wrap things up since so many of you have been following along. First, the good news. Ashley and I are incredible together. We took a weekend trip to her family's cabin last month, and I met her parents. Her dad and I spent the whole evening talking about woodworking and old movies, while her mom and Ashley caught up on family gossip and planned some home renovation project together. Later, her mom pulled me aside and said, "Ashley's always been picky about who she brings home. I can see why she chose you. You two just fit." When I asked what she meant, she smiled and said, "You make each other laugh and you both actually listen when the other person talks. That's rarer than you'd think." We're talking about moving in together, and for the first time in my life, I'm not worried about whether someone loves me for the right reasons. As for Maya, the situation resolved itself in a way I didn't expect. About 3 weeks ago, I got a call from Richard. I almost didn't answer because I didn't recognize the number, but something made me pick up. "Daniel, this is Richard Dean from the Hartwell Group. I think we need to talk." We met for coffee the next day, and honestly, he seemed like a decent guy who got caught up in something bigger than he realized. He told me that after the gala, Maya had been acting strange and obsessing over me. "Look, I don't know what happened between you two, but ever since that event, she's been a lot. She keeps asking me about you, about your role in our partnership, whether I think you're trying to sabotage our relationship. When I told her you were just doing your job professionally, she got angry and said I didn't understand how manipulative you are. I just wanted to hear your side." I told him the truth, that Maya and I had dated for 2 years, that she left me for someone she thought was more successful, and that seeing me at the gala had obviously shaken her up. Richard's face went through about 5 different emotions during this conversation. "Wait, hold up. You two dated for 2 years. When I nodded, he ran his hands through his hair. That's when he told me the timeline. Maya had approached him at the gym while we were still together. She'd been flirting and asking him out for weeks before our breakup. I thought I was dating someone who was recently single and maybe dealing with an annoying ex. Turns out I was the other man, and now I'm finding out that the annoying ex is actually the guy my company's entire future depends on." He looked sick. "She played both of us, man." He broke up with her that same day. Not because of me, but because he realized she'd been lying to him from the beginning. If she could lie about something that big, what else was she lying about? Plus, the way she's been obsessing over your success since the gala. It's like she's more upset about missing out on your money than losing our relationship. Maya apparently didn't take it well. She's been posting cryptic social media stuff about fake people and men who can't handle strong women. A mutual friend told me she's been telling people that both Richard and I are intimidated by her ambition. The crazy part, last week I heard through the grapevine that Maya applied for a job at my company. She didn't get past the first screening, but a coworker I'm close with in HR mentioned it to me as a heads up. I don't think she even realizes that her ex-boyfriend is the guy her potential employer considers their most valuable team member. I'm not angry anymore, Reddit. I actually feel kind of bad for Maya. She's so focused on what she thinks she deserves that she can't see what she actually needs. I hope she figures it out someday, but it's not my job to teach her. The project at Richard's company is going amazingly well. We're ahead of schedule and under budget, which basically never happens in this industry. The client team loves working with us, and there's already talk about additional contracts. Richard and I are professional and cordial when we interact for work stuff. No drama, no weirdness. Ashley got promoted last month to senior analyst, and we celebrated at the same diner where we went after the gala. She said it felt like coming full circle. When I asked her what she meant, she said, "That night at the gala, I realized I was in love with you. Not because of the speech or the fancy event, but because of how you handled everything with grace. Tonight I realized you're going to be the same person whether you're successful or struggling, whether people are celebrating you or doubting you. That's the man I want to build a life with." I'm ring shopping, Reddit. I've found someone who would say yes to a plastic ring from a Cracker Jack box. But of course, I'm not going to give her that. I'm going to give Ashley something she absolutely deserves. Thanks for all the support and advice over these past few months. You guys helped me see that I didn't lose anything when Maya left. I just made room for something better. Edit, people are asking about the ring. Ashley and I have talked about marriage, and she's made it clear that she wants something simple and meaningful, not expensive. She actually said she'd prefer if I spent the money on a vacation together instead of a huge diamond. This is why I love her.